Here come the masks again. Any moment now, counties may bring back the mask mandates that the governor refuses to touch. As teenagers shoot teenagers in Aurora, we look at whether their parents might be held accountable if they leave guns lying around. Denver's new strategy on homelessness goes beyond just sweeping people in circles around the city. And the Senate candidate who shot up a copier pretending it was a voting machine is now suing in search of voter fraud in Colorado. Probably more productive than blowing up another Xerox machine. That's next. Most of the Denver metro area could be back under indoor mask mandates shortly. Jefferson County's Board of Health is going to vote on that any minute now. Tri-County Health is also voting tonight. Tri-County, of course, is more bi-county these days. It's just Adams and Arapahoe counties. Douglas County quit specifically to avoid mask mandates and other measures designed to keep Coloradans alive. Denver's public health director indicated Denver will announce its indoor mask mandate tomorrow.
We have a mask mandate for DPS for school systems, but not for the broader public. We'll be announcing some things in the next day or so, but right now we don't have that.
The counties are acting somewhat independently, somewhat in conjunction, because Democratic Governor Jared Polis has made it clear that he is not interested in statewide action as COVID hospitalizations fill hospitals. Few counties already went down this path recently with indoor mask mandates. Steve Steger wondered how that's going.
It is a difficult thing. People are tired. We're tired of COVID.
And a lot of people are tired of masks, especially after the freedom many people felt this summer. But masks are already back in 2 metro counties, have been for a little while.
For the most part, our Larimer County businesses are very compliant.
Larimer County's order has been in place since the waning weeks of October. Corey Wilford is a spokeswoman for the health department there. We asked her how the enforcement's going.
We have just over 900 complaints that we've received from community members. We take action by making a phone call to the business when we have at least 2 unique complaints.
Wilford says the department visits any business that gets more than 5 complaints. They've had about 150 of those.
We will consider issuing a notice of violation, which is just a little bit stronger enforcement, which could also lead to a notice of closure. We haven't issued any of those yet.
Boulder County couldn't provide numbers on enforcement today. They did say that they've seen masking increase significantly since they passed the mandate in early September. Wilford says in Larimer County, it helped folks realize there was a problem.
So I think it did raise the awareness that we're not out of the woods yet.
So we've heard from public health leaders that much of the success in public health orders like this have to do with awareness. People are burned out right now, so they may not be checking the numbers we report here every day. So hearing about a mandate may make people who believe in the virus more likely to start paying attention again if they got lax during that little summer break, Kyle.
And of course, it goes without saying that the virus believes in you, even if you don't believe in it. So then what are they seeing in terms of, as they watch for generalized, are people participating in the mask mandate, hospitalizations, cases, that kind of thing going forward?
Larimer County can point just after their mandate was passed. They saw a little uptick, and then they saw some of their hospitalizations start to trend down, while neighboring Weld County, which doesn't have a mask mandate, just kind of saw that same increase right after Larimer County passed its mandate, but it continues to see an uptick in hospitalizations and cases there.
Okay, Steve Staker, thank you. So COVID hospitalizations statewide, we know that the vast majority of these hospitalized cases are unvaccinated, tends to be around 80%, and those numbers keep rising daily. 1,565 patients is an increase of 46 overnight, up 134 from this time last week. Test positivity rate gives you an idea of how the virus is spreading in the community, and the answer is quickly. It's still above 9%, though the test positivity has been taken down in the last couple of days. Haven't been below 9% since the start of the month. It's been a few weeks since we showed you the death numbers here. An important reminder, this information is not reported immediately. So the most accurate way to look at the deaths from COVID is to look back a week or two for the most accurate total. Early in November, we were losing 33 Coloradans a day to COVID-19. Our Thanksgiving break could not come soon enough for Aurora Public Schools. Week off after 9 students were shot, 6 of them at a park across from Aurora Central last Monday, then 3 more in the parking lot of Hinckley High on Friday. All 9 of those students are expected to recover. As Aurora's leaders gather, including today, discussing how to get through to teenagers to stop the violence, you have asked us if perhaps parents could be held responsible. Marshall Zellinger takes a look.
3 teenagers, all 16 years old, are in custody facing attempted murder charges for the shooting that injured 3 teens in the Hinckley High School parking lot Friday.
If we can prevent one tragedy from happening, that's the goal.
Democratic State Representative Monica Duran got a bill signed into law this year requiring the safe storage of firearms.
Whether it's with a cable lock, whether it's with a trigger lock, whether it's the gun safe, whether it's a biometric safe. We have trigger locks on ours and we have a gun safe.
After 2 shootings in Aurora last week involving high school students, we heard from viewers who wanted to know if gun owners, parents, should be held responsible for more than just locking guns up. Should they face consequences if their child shoots someone?
If an incident like that happens, imagine the impact that it has on the family member as it is, right? Knowing that either your child or their friend or a neighbor's child had gotten a hold of your gun.
The things that we don't know, looking at the latest 2 tragedies in Aurora, are what are the sources for these firearms that were used?
Republican Larimer County Sheriff Justin Smith is supportive of the Safe Gun Storage education campaign and public service announcements from the Attorney General's office earlier this year. The law comes with criminal penalties for the gun owner if a gun is not safely stored. However, no one has been charged with the crime since it took effect in July. And it doesn't address any penalties for the gun owner if the gun is used in a crime.
One of the areas of concern that I have is when we start talking about safe storage, we can't pretend that any statute is going to change the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of stolen firearms that are already out there on the market that not just youth, but criminals in general can get a hold of no matter what their age is.
There was another bill that became law this year requiring gun owners to report if their gun is lost or stolen. And if it's used in a crime and traced back to someone who did not report it lost or stolen, they'll get hit with a $25 fine. Do it a second time and not report it lost or stolen, it's up to $500. That's probably the closest thing to what our viewers are asking about for will anything ever go back to the owner of the gun if it's used in a crime.
There's certainly increased attention in a Democrat-controlled state legislature to the issue of gun violence and gun violence prevention.
And there was another bill that was passed into law, created the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. It's really about suicides and accidental deaths and collecting data, but it also provides grant money for organizations. Once it starts, it's going to get a director soon. It's supposed to happen by June where they have their first director. And they will be able to provide grant money to organizations to help stem gun violence in communities.
Try some different approaches, see what sticks, see what works. All right, Marshall, thank you. Want to pass along my appreciation for what you all did last week to help gang intervention specialists in Aurora. Your Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign last week raised more than $30,000 for GRASP, Gang Rescue and Support Project. They are among the groups doing the on-the-ground work, connecting with individual teenagers, learning about which conflicts might turn into violence, and then convincing those kids that they can have a better future without guns and without gangs. For the small nonprofit that operates GRASP and has done this work in the community for 30 years, your $30,000 overnight is going to make a real impact for them. It funds 3/4 of an annual position for one more gang intervention specialist. Your Word of Thanks campaigns are within $50,000 of the $5 million mark. So be back Wednesday with an idea for Thanksgiving. He died trying to prove that Colorado's growing wildfires could be fought from the air by night. Mark Olson crashed during his first attempt. Now the family of the man known as Thor wants to make sure that his idea of nighttime firefighting continues. Hundreds of first responders lined the roads from Fort Collins to Fort Morgan today as Olson's body was taken to the funeral home. With 32 years of military service flying, his older brother believes that Thor would want someone else to continue his mission.
Don't let Mark Olson's death be in vain. Don't let this program die.
He would want it to survive.
He would want it to survive.
Olson crashed last Tuesday, shortly after radioing to the ground, telling them that the wind was heavy, he was going through some turbulence, he planned to turn back. The NTSB will finish its investigation before any kind of nighttime firefighting with planes continues in our state.
Under promise and over deliver. Great advice for work, marriage, and the project to expand I-25. It's done a year early. Denver has a new plan to reduce homelessness. Ready for this? It's homes. And the Senate candidate who blew up a copier pretending it was a voting machine would now like you to take his election security lawsuit seriously. That's next.
eating the flowers, clearly. City of Denver is out with its plan today to cut homelessness by half in 4 years' time. And it sets up roughly like this: more housing, fewer evictions, and safer alternatives to living on the streets for people who are resistant getting into traditional housing. Denver's got this whole Department of Housing Stability these days, and it wants to add 1,400 affordable rentals and homes for sale, plus rent and utility help for more than 6,000 people who are at risk for eviction, along with an eviction legal defense fund. And the city plans to spend money on alternatives to shelters, things like those organized outdoor spaces for camping and tiny homes. Denver's also promising more transparency on its controversial camping sweeps, standardizing and publicizing the process by which they decide which camps to sweep. Most of the $270 million for this will come out of federal pandemic relief. DIA's Great Hall project could learn a little something from the I-25 Gap project. While that airport renovation drags on over budget over time, the revamp of the interstate south of the metro area is opening a year ahead of schedule. Construction to expand the 18-mile stretch of I-25 between Castle Rock and Monument began in September of 2018. It was originally scheduled to be complete in November of next year. It's going to open next month. The announcement came today. The project cost Colorado an appropriate $420 million, paid for by Douglas and El Paso counties, along with Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority and a federal grant.
Oh, what a way to start the busy holiday travel week. Sunshine, temperatures above average in the 60s and 70s. Yeah, we desperately need the moisture, but you know, if you've got to be somewhere, this pattern's pretty great. Unless you're trying to get up and go skiing. We don't have a lot of snow up there for ski resorts, but a midweek storm may bring in a little bit of snow in the next 24 hours. Winds will be increasing, so concerns for high fire danger along the Front Range tomorrow. And we will see a little bit of snow coming into the southern mountains tomorrow night, and a chance for snow in Denver on Wednesday. Not a big chance, but it's there. We do have highs tomorrow back in the mid-60s, a colder day Wednesday with a 20% chance of snow. Thanksgiving Thursday looks great. Sunshine in 54, and then a string of mild, dry days that'll get you right into next weekend.
A congresswoman's former campaign manager is raided by the FBI, who she then compares to Nazis who killed babies. You know, just normal political stuff. Speaking of, 2022 is expected to be a very strong year for Republicans, which makes it weird a key statewide race doesn't have a Republican contender. And a sign with something to say before it lost the plot. Next. Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert's former campaign manager, Sharona Bishop, says she could be facing a federal charge that carries up to 20 years in prison. Bishop acknowledged that while talking about the FBI agents who served a search warrant at her home last week. She called that an atrocity, compared the federal agents to Nazi soldiers who shot babies in the head. Bishop is being investigated along with Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters. Peters is there in white, Bishop in black. Clerk Peters basically celebrated the breach of her own voting systems, a breach which allowed fellow conspiracy theorists access to the files inside. Clerk Peters' home was also raided by the FBI. She said it was terrifying. State law enforcement noticed she was continuing to cook breakfast while evidence was seized. Congresswoman Boebert addressed the election security breach investigation today by expressing concern about FBI overreach. The Congresswoman did not express concern about the election security breach itself. Clerk Peters has lost the support of Mesa County's Republican leaders through all this, but not the Colorado Republican Party, which has refused to answer our questions about Clerk Peters for nearly 4 months now. The Republican Senate candidate who launched his campaign by shooting up a copy machine, pretending it was a voting machine, is now suing Colorado's Democratic Secretary of State. Ron Hanks leads a group of Republicans who are claiming that Secretary of State Jenna Griswold's office used a testing lab that was not accredited, used it to test Colorado's voting machines before the 2020 election. Hanks, who's a state rep out of Penrose, is a critic of the Dominion voting systems used by nearly all Colorado counties. Dominion was at the center of the conspiracy theories about election rigging. Representative Hanks, who was in Washington for the January 6 insurrection, said they hoped that the election would be overturned by foreign intelligence services. Here at home in Colorado, he's calling for an independent audit. He attended the so-called Cyber Ninja audit down in Arizona that did not find evidence of election fraud.
So Hanks's race, that U.S. Senate race, is the only big race in Colorado where Republicans are piling in for a robust primary. That's kind of odd, because 2022 is expected to be a very good year for Republicans nationwide.
Typically, a potential wave election would bring a flood of candidates from the party expected to win big so they could first compete in a primary. But Colorado Republicans haven't had this little political power since before World War II, so maybe there's thinking that a red wave won't wash all the way to the Rockies. The last Republican elected statewide, CU Regent Heidi Ganahl. She's a lone prominent Republican who's running for governor, so no primary challenge there. Republicans just got their first well-known candidate for treasurer, too. Former State Representative Lang Sias, who ran unsuccessfully for Congress and lieutenant governor. At this point, Colorado Republicans don't have a candidate for attorney general. Somebody to face first-term incumbent Democrat Phil Weiser. He's Colorado's first Democratic AG since 2005. Now, Republicans will run someone, but getting the money in and the message out gets harder with every passing week that they don't have a candidate.
We have a sign of indecision for you. It's a really good one, and your rarely undecided feedback next. It's a sign that desperately wants you to give it attention until you do. Kind of like some dating relationships. Joel spotted the sign near the Target in Lowry. It reads, "Attention!" Oh, sorry, never mind. No idea who put that up there, but we love it. Look this up online. Apparently, this is sold as a novelty sign. Somebody actually put it up in a public area. It's great. If there's a sign that catches your eye, email a photo to next@9news.com or get our attention on Twitter with the hashtag #HeyNext. Michael Hill writes in with a thought, the sentiment of which we've heard from a good number of people over the last few weeks. He writes, how is the number of COVID hospitalizations in Colorado possible? With the highest vax rate of all the states, how is it that we are in the top 3 of rising cases? Michael, we're actually not doing that well when it comes to vaccinations. Just checked, per the Mayo Clinic's numbers, Colorado is 14th among the states. About 63% of the population is fully vaccinated. We know from the state's totals that about 80% of those serious cases in the hospitals, those COVID hospitalizations, are unvaccinated people. And with a good portion of the population unvaccinated, the virus has plenty of willing participants at this point. That's why our hospitalizations continue to be so high. See you next time.